will be teaching you scholarly communication, English medium batch. Okay? So, Madam Professor Saroja will be teaching to the Telugu medium students, same subject, scholarly communication. That's going on in a parallel session. So, I will be with you for tomorrow and day after, that is for 3 days. Okay, we have 3 classes, each class running from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. That is 2 hours. The total we have about 6 hours for this subject, scholarly communication. And this is, we are running it parallelly for English medium students and the Telugu medium students. Okay. And I believe you had a class in the morning on English. Am I correct? You had a madam, English madam gave you a class now in the morning at 10:30 or so. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. So now my class, we are actually getting into the core of library science discipline subjects. Okay. So, and since today is the first class, and since all of you have for some reason decided to join the bachelor's degree in library science, as a professional librarian, I welcome all the students to the library profession. Welcome to the profession. Exciting journey for you. So each one of you may have your own individual reasons why you have joined this course, or why you wanted to become a professional librarian if the opportunity is put in your favor. So, with that, this BLISC course will run into 2 semesters. We are currently in the first semester. At the end of the first semester, you will have a set of exams. So once you complete your exams, we will start the second semester. At the end of second semester, there will be another set of exams. Okay? So, and it is compulsory for you to pass all the exams to earn your degree of BLISC, that is Bachelor of Library and Institutions. As you know, this is a 1-year course. Okay. Due to the pandemic situation, there has been problems everywhere, as you are well aware of. So, education sector is not an exception, and the students and the faculty are also affected by the pandemic. So, because of that, instead, in lieu of the face-to-face counseling sessions that used to take place in the physically classroom, here we have decided to have a class in the digital environment using the Zoom platform. I believe all of you are comfortable with the Zoom platform. It has its own positive aspects and negative aspects. The platform itself has its own issue. Given that, there are a few advantages that you can be wherever you are and listen to your teachers. That's a great advantage for you. And now, in the first semester, we have several subjects, and during the next 10 days, so we will be teaching you various subjects relating to library science. Okay. So to begin with, in a library, as you know, you have some vague idea of what is a library, I believe. So as students in your school or as students in your college, I am sure most of you must have visited your own school library or a college library. Or possibly some of you who prepare for the competitive exams, you also might have visited few public libraries in your own village or in your own town or city nearby. So in that sense, all libraries are not same. There are different kinds of libraries. So in the school library, what happens is you have small children that come and visit the library. So there, the job of a librarian in a school would be to inculcate the habit of reading among small children, just to make them read, just to motivate them to read. So that's why if you go to a school library, you will have a lot of story books, you have a lot of cartoon material, you have stuff to play with around, and people can go around, play, do whatever they want in a small school library. Imagine, first class child or a second class child. So they will have a particular environment. It's not like a silence zone in a school library. The school library people go around, children go around, play, they talk to each other, jump, do all kinds of things in the school library. There the purpose is to make them sit properly, to make them inculcate the habit of serious reading. Then when you graduate from a school to a college libraries generally have a lot of, we have little more serious content in a college library. If you are in a degree college library, you have more specialized content, more scholarly content, like textbooks, that you prepare for the exams. You may have some dictionaries, lot of dictionaries you may have, we call them reference materials. You may have maps, you may have atlases, you may have gazettees, you may have biographies, you may have novels, you may have newspapers, you may have theses, you may have journals, you may have periodicals, things like that. The library stuff becomes a little more complex when you go to a college library. Similarly, when you graduate from a college to a university level, suppose you go to Osmania University or a University of Hyderabad, Central University of Hyderabad, you have much larger library with a much larger collection and with a much more variety of reading material at university level. You see a lot of scholarly material in a university library. Because when you go to the university level, you have PhD students, you have postdoctoral fellows, you have professors, you have, and serious researchers, looking into the library's materials. So the kind of material that you see in a university library, where very high-end users come and spend very serious hours in the library, is totally different than what you see in a school library or college library. Similarly, you might have heard about Jilla Granthalaya Samstha, the public library system of India. India, we have a strong, robust public library system. Even in the Telangana state, we have very strong public library system. Those of you who are living in Hyderabad, we have one of the largest libraries in India, that is the State Central Library, located in Afzalganj. In case you find an opportunity, at your earliest opportunity, try to visit the State Central Library in Afzalganj. It's a huge building. It's the largest library in the state of Telangana. It's run by the government of Telangana, and it's open to all. It's a public library. Anybody can enter into that library. Similarly, we have another public library in Ashok Nagar. We call it City Central Library. It's also quite big, located in the heart of the city. People preparing for a lot of competitive exams, go to that Ashok Nagar public library. Similarly, we have in Hyderabad, place like Hyderabad, we have so many research organizations. We have a lot of research laboratories. For example, we have defense research laboratories where, we do research on missiles. Similarly, we have research laboratories of medical research laboratories in Hyderabad, NIN in Karnataka. Similarly, we have scientific research laboratories under CSIR, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. We have 3 laboratories in Hyderabad, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, then the National Geophysical Research Institute, and the Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, Hyderabad. Incidentally, I happen to work at CCMB, Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology, for 35 years for a novel. Novels are generally scholarly content, scholarly made. That the librarians post in it. Okay, so what I wanted to drive in is that there are different kinds of materials in libraries. Certain libraries, like research laboratories, university libraries, will have scholarly content on their books. This there could be PhD students, there could be MPhil students, there could be postdoctoral researchers. They do high-end research. They are not ordinary people. They are people above the ordinary. Okay, the content that caters to them comes under scholarly content. This is all scholarly content. So in a typical library, there will be scholarly material, and also some libraries may have things for popular reading or pleasure reading. That is, as a librarian, you need to distinguish between the popular reading material and the scholarly. Among the scholarly material, books, for example, as students, all of you have graduated. So in your BA or BSc level or BTech level, some of you might be engineering graduates. So you must have used a lot of textbooks. Textbooks is one kind of books. Actually, once you have come to BLSC, enroll yourself into the BLSC, you should understand that the word book, a book that we tend to like. I have 1 lakh books, I have 30,000 books. In that sense, book as such, a very, very generic term. So when you enter inside library, the books are different. Okay? For example, you are familiar with textbooks, for example. Textbooks are, kind of middle-level books that we generally prescribe for students to pass a given exam. For example, for BLSC, we have some course material that university must have sent you. Some of you must have received, or some, I understand, they are in the process of receiving. So generally, textbooks are one kind of reading material that you have in a research library. For example, maybe I'll show you some examples. This is a typical textbook that we have in a library. This is a medical textbook. Practical medicine. This is a typical textbook that we have in the library. So, what happens in a textbook is that the language in which the textbook is written is generally simple. Written in a simple language, you don't find too complex English in that. Okay, something that students can easily understand. Okay, because to make you learn certain concepts. Suppose you are reading a chemistry test. What is the basics of chemistry, how to do simple experiments, how to know what is all about chemistry. So that is the purpose of textbook. And also, it helps you to pass a given exam, against a specified curriculum. Similarly, when you go to a research library, what happens is we have what we call research monographs. The research monographs are slightly different. For example, I'll show you a research monograph. This is what we call a research monograph. This is not a textbook. This is something more serious reading. What I'm trying to try you is the scholarly communication is all about very serious scholarly, sometimes very technical, very scientific, very research-based content. Look, having given you some examples of the background of why scholarly communication is important for librarians, because if you join a research library or a university library, you will be handling scholarly material. Similarly, the users with whom you will be interacting in a university library or a research library will be high-end scholars. So, if you have to give them proper service, you need to understand their information needs, how the process of the scholarly communication takes place. So, for that purpose, we have introduced this book for use. I hope you have this book with you. All of you have received this book with you? Can somebody tell me whether you have this book with you?
No, sir, actually.
You have not received the book. Okay, you will be getting it soon. So this is the university course material on scholarly community. So this is about 100 pages. Okay, and me and Dr. Sarojit together we have prepared this book for you. This is a very new one. We brought up this out about 3 years back. Yours is the third batch for whom we are teaching. This is something new that we have introduced in India for BLISC students. Maybe first in India. Ambedkar Open University is the first in India to introduce the scholarly communication subject for library science. And we have about 9 chapters in this book. So, and every day we will be teaching you 3 chapters. Okay? So today I am supposed to cover 3 chapters. So the first, noting down a few important points that would help you in your first semester and exam. At the end of the semester, you need to take an exam on scholarly. So these exams they will run into 100 marks, 3-hour exams, a written exam, 3-hour exam. And exam will be, it will not be too difficult for you to pass through the exam once you follow the course material. The course material that we have prepared here, this is different from the normal textbooks that you find in the market. So these books are specially written keeping the distance learners in mind. Now that you do not come face to face with your teachers, you are at home, so the materials that we give you, we call it self-learning material. These are self-learning materials. The structure of self-learning materials is totally different. It's written very, very simple English language, very, very easy to understand. And each subject is broken down into certain units. We human beings have become very powerful, successful on earth because we are able to communicate more efficiently than the written. So actually it is the communication, the communication mouth to mouth. People used to talk, that's it. There is nothing like a written communication. Because it was not possible to write down something, because writing down something, you will also have some shock. That is 1 mark. Okay. So, and all these 1 mark questions will be derived from your reading material that you will be receiving very soon. So, if you begin reading the entire material, then it will not be difficult for you to pass. You can even score in the short notes questions, you will be able to score 100 by. For example, I said paper was the papyrus paper, the earlier form of paper was called papyrus. Papyrus was some material derived out of plant material pulped from the plant. This was actually invented in Egypt. Egyptians were the first to perfect the paper technique. Then it's China. There may be short one word question for where was paper invented? You need to say Egypt. It is the fill in the blank question. Sometimes there will be a multiple choice question also for you in the exam. Like you need to pick up like where the country where the first papyrus was made, India, China, Egypt. So you need to tick mark Egypt. Okay. So note it down. Where the papyrus was first made, that would be question for you in the exam. So actually, if you see the technology, paper was invented first, and then the printing technology came. Printing technology came much later, several centuries later. First the paper came up, and then people used to write it down with hand and this. So in the beginning, the paper was like a roll. It's like in a supermarket, you see the people at the billing counter have a roll now. So they tear off the bill and like that. The paper used to be in the form of a roll. The books used to be in the form of a roll. So those things were called papyrus rolls. It used to be in the form of a rolled sheets. People used to roll it, then write it down and roll it, and then present it. So that is the history of writing down. So then we have John Gutenberg. That's again an important path-making discovery made in Europe, in Germany, by Gutenberg, early in the year 1450. Sometimes these years become important for you for objective type questions. Like, so when was the first printing machine assembled? That would be one word question, 1 mark question. You need to say the first printing machine was made in the year 1450 by John Gutenberg. So then the putting together of the printing machine, that has actually revolutionized the communication among us. But the libraries came up only because I always say libraries have come up and people have become librarians because we should thank Gutenberg. Because Gutenberg is the person who has invented the printing machine and first assembly. And after he has put together that machine, some people call it a movable press. So after Gutenberg's printing machine, it was possible for us to print books in good numbers. So suppose an author writes a book, and then I need to make 1,000 copies. So to multiply, to make one copy into 100,000 copies, you need a printing machine, and it is John Gutenberg who has invented printing. So it's after his invention in 1450, it was possible for us to print books in mass and distribute it around the world. When we start distributing around the world, what happened? People started acquiring these books, collecting these books, and then initially people used to keep them as personal collections. These books initial days, in 15th century, 16th century, and it used to be, people used to feel very proud of keeping those. Just like having a gold necklace or gold bracelets. Just like having jewelry, just as to be proud of having jewelry. Having books, used to be a matter of pride in the earlier society. Because they were rare, they were not too many books were published around. But thanks to the printing industry, subsequently, it has gone into very sophisticated. It was possible to make very high-end printing machines, fast printing machines, which will print several pages at a time on both sides. Actually, Gutenberg's machine, it was able to print only on one side of paper. One page, one side at a time. But now we have machines which will make both sides, multiple pages at a time. And at the end of, if you see the newspaper press, for example, if you go to any newspaper press, you will know that, the whole thing is automated, the whole process is automated, and then it's printed on both the sides, it's cut into the side, it gets folded automatically by the machine. And now the modern book machines, they actually print the entire book. And at the end of the process, a chemical adhesive is applied on the spine, and then the final book comes out. The whole process has been automated now. The book production has been automated. Printing technology has evolved so much. So with that mass production of books, so there were too many books that came around, and slowly so that led to the evolution of what we now call libraries. So libraries have come to a place where, for housing these kind of reading materials. So now what happened is after John Gutenberg invented that printing machine, that was the path-making discovery. Then after John Gutenberg, Egypt, the first path-making invention took place in Egypt when the paper or papyrus was in the 4th millennium. So that was the first milestone. First milestone is the invention of paper. Second milestone is invention of the printing press. Okay. Then the third important milestone that happened was the internet. Tim Berners-Lee and a few other scientists, they have created internet. So once internet came into existence, once it became popular, it all happened, as you know, in 1990. The internet revolution actually started from 1990. By 2000, it has invaded all areas, and libraries are not an exception. Computers and information technology invaded every sphere of human activity. And now able to speak to you and then you are able to listen to me, it's only because of the technology, because of the information. The information technology has affected the classrooms, where I'm sitting at my home, you are sitting at your home, and where it's thanks to that information technology. The same thing has also influenced, affected libraries in a very, very big. So the paper-based, the print-based materials that used to be in libraries, big libraries, started getting replaced by electronic books, e-books, or digital books. Similarly, with journals, newspapers, all kinds of reading material in libraries, in print materials. Something printed using John Gutenberg's technology on paper invented in Egypt in 4th millennium BC. All that used to take us, all that is now going to be history. The future is all about internet, digital stuff. So now we librarians are handling more of digital content in the library than physical printed. Don't say that books are no more, books are no more published, books are still being printed. Just as you see, newspapers are still available. We have a choice. So you can buy a newspaper and read it, or on your smartphone, you can go to Namaste Telangana, or go to Hindu, go to Indian Express, go to Economic Times, go to Times of India website, and read today's newspaper before the newspaper boy delivers it at your door, maybe 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. 2-3 hours before the boy delivers newspaper, read it online. And it keeps changing every minute. The content on the newspaper website is changes in real time. As news happens, as things happen, the website. So libraries are now invaded with these lots and lots of digital content. We have a few other subjects, like I will not be teaching, somebody else will be teaching the impact of. We have a paper called Information Technology for library. We'll be teaching more about that, how to handle these digital things. For today's class, we are talking about scholarly communication. When I talk about coming back to the basics of scholarly communication, having told you the basics of the printing, how libraries have evolved from print to electronic, I'll tell you a little bit about the scholarly, little more about the scholarly. As I said in the beginning of my talk, so libraries have different kinds of material. Today's class, we are restricting ourselves to what we call scholarly. Scholarly content means material used by scientists, professors, research scholars, and decision makers. They also are scholars, not scholars. For example, you take, say, State Bank of India, or any bank, for example, any commercial bank. So in a bank, suppose you take a big officer in a bank, a regional manager level officer in a bank, an industrialist goes to a banker and then applies for a loan to start an industry. So the manager in a bank has to take decision whether that loan is viable or not. Will he pay it back or not? Is that industry viable or not? How does he take that decision? These big banking sectors or financial institutions also maintain good library, very good library. For example, the State Bank of India has a very good library in Begum. Similarly, the Reserve Bank of India, what we call the Apex Bank in India is the Reserve Bank. They also have several jobs, including the printing of our currency. So the Reserve Bank of India headquarters is in Mumbai, and Reserve Bank of India has a very large library, very, very big library, huge library. And the librarian of Reserve Bank of India is one of the highest paid librarians. So he is paid on par with almost like a joint secretary government. Even his salary is much higher than a university. The salary of Reserve Bank of India librarian is much more, it's slightly higher than the university professor. Such is the importance that the Reserve Bank of India gives to library. Because they feed a lot of content to the decision makers in the bank. So they also, even in the banking sector, you have a lot of scholarly. When to print a note, when not to print a note. For example, a few years back, we had demonetization. So the BJP government has decided on demonetization. That is, throwing away all 500 rupee notes and 1,000 rupee notes are aware of that. To take that decision, it's not easy to take that decision. So a lot of discussions, a lot of intellectual process goes behind that. So they need scholarly content, scholarly literature to arrive at that. So even in the financial institutions, a lot of decision-making scholarly process goes. So banking sector also, the financial organizations also will have a lot of scholarly. They may have a lot of material related to economics. Similarly, World Bank. World Bank has a very huge library, fantastic library. World Bank has one of the richest resources in economics, commerce, those related. Okay. So this is the kind of scholar. So coming back to this scholarly material. Okay. In scholarly communication, we discuss how do scholars communicate with each other. Suppose I am a scientist working in science. So I invent something totally new. Imagine I discover a new anti-cancer. I am working in a laboratory. My laboratory works on cancer, does a lot of research on cancer. So I find a new molecule which has possibly good cure. Okay. So I need to communicate my discovery to my fellow cancer researchers. So that is basically scholarly communication at very high end. That happens between researchers and scholars. So what people used to do previously was, like suppose I talk over telephone to my fellow researcher. On telephone also a lot of scholarly communication. Informal. Those things we call them as informal channels of study. Similarly, when people meet, suppose I meet another fellow researcher for a cup of tea or over a dinner, a lot of scholarly exchange takes place. Similarly, I may be sending a WhatsApp message to my fellow researcher. I may be sending an email correspondence to my fellow researcher. Or I may be in the olden days, we used to write letters. When I was a student, I used to write letters. When I was in the college, every week I used to write a letter to my father. Dear father, I am okay, I am doing well. Like that. But now people don't write letters. Now those were the days where people used to write letters. So scientists also used to write letters to communicate their findings. Find something interesting in my laboratory. I find the results seem to be very promising. I'm sharing with you what I found today in my laboratory. So people used to share among themselves. That is the basis of scholarly. Scholar means, let us try to understand who is this. Scholar is somebody who is above the normal level of things. Somebody who is not a normal human being, is highly educated, highly intellectual person. Those things we call them scholars. Some of you who know Telugu, so Telugulo manaki medhavi antam kada, somebody, that is what we call a scholar. Scholar is actually an intellectual person with a lot of intellect. Great thinking capacity. Scholars are great thinkers. They think a lot. They synthesize content in their brain. Okay? And such people, and scholarly communication is most of it happens at that. Personal communications is one way of communicating the research findings, like talking over telephone, WhatsApp, or email. Those are informal ways of communication. But there are also more formal ways. So and as librarians, in libraries, we are more concerned with these formal ways. The formal ways of communication are you write down something, put it on a post. Previously, we used to write it on a pen. So what we do is we type it on internet, using a laptop or a desktop. We type an MS Word. The process is same. You may be writing down with a pen or typing keyboard into a Word document. So at the end of the day, you create a document. You create a 5-page document. Maybe it is handwritten or it is typed. So this is what we call written communication. So in libraries, we talk more about written communication, written scholarly. In the book, we have given a little bit about the history of written communication among scholars. So, a little bit of history. They used to read in the past what we call scholarly society. Okay? Scholarly societies, especially in the 16th century, 17th century. If you go by the scholarship, exchanging these ideas, scholarships, these things started around century 17th. Much later to the invention of the printing machine. I should also tell you that John Gutenberg, when he invented the printing machine, the intentions were totally different. The intention behind inventing a printing machine was the first, by the way, the first book that John Gutenberg printed and his machine, this is sometimes an exam question or interview question. The book that was printed by John Gutenberg happens to be Holy Bible. So the printing technology was initially, when it was made, it was used to propagate religion in Europe. So in that sense, the printing technology, the printing, the publishing was not that we can't call it publishing at that stage only, it was only printing. But the printing industry was totally controlled by the church in those days. The churches used to control. Printing used to be under the control of the church father, and they used to decide how many copies of the Bible to whom the Bible should. Initial stages used to be. The printing technology was used to mainly to propagate religion in certain countries. Later on, what happened was the scholars, like the scientists, scholars, etc., started making use of it. It took about almost 250 to 300 years. Historically, it's only after the 17th century when the printing technology came in the 15th century. It's only 17th century, 18th century, about 200 to 300 years, 250 years old. Only the scholarly content started. Real scholars started. In those days, olden days, what happened? 200 to 250 years ago, these scholars used to meet in park. And it all started actually in UK, England. England actually has it's a totally different country in the sense that they think differently, people in Britain. But the kings used to support the science in those days. The British kings used to support scholarship. So actually the kings and all the intellectuals born into a society, royal society, where they used to meet.
చూస్తున్నా కదా ప్లీజ్ సార్, అది కాల్ డిస్టర్బెన్స్ వస్తుంది, మ్యూట్లో పెట్టుకోమని చెప్పండి సార్ అందరికి. హలో సార్.
కిరణ్, can you mute everybody?
సార్ ప్లీజ్ అది మ్యూట్ పెట్టుకోండి సార్, వేరే వాళ్ళ వాయిస్ వస్తుంది సార్.
చాలా డిస్టర్బ్ అవుతుంది.
Kiran, can you mute everybody? Yashwantunnara? Computer center lo evaru unnara? Unnara computer staff?
No, sir, admin centers.
Yashwantunnara?
మీరే చేయండి మ్యూట్. వాళ్ళు చూసి చేయండి సార్.
కొంత డిస్టర్బెన్స్ వస్తుంది, మ్యూట్ చేస్తారా? అందరినీ యూజర్స్ అందరినీ మ్యూట్ ఎక్సెప్ట్ మీ, మేక్ ఎవ్రీబడి మ్యూట్. థ్యాంక్ యూ కిరణ్. ఈ మ్యూటింగ్ ఎవ్రీవన్.
ఓకే సార్.
Thank you for bringing this to my notice. Mikadanna, if you want to tell me something, you can use the chat box. The chat box below, the chat box can be sunda.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Use the chat box and type there.
Okay, sir.
Right. You type in the chat box, and all your mics are things are being switched off one by one. Okay, good. Now is it better now? Yes, it is better now. Okay. So in England, there used to be a society called Royal Society. In Royal Society, once in a week, the intellectuals, used to meet in the evenings. The intellectuals used to meet, and then they used to discuss on various and how to improve the world, how to make the world a better place for living. People used to think like the intellectuals, and the king used to support them. King used to give them infrastructure for, the facility, give the facilities for intellectuals to meet once in a week and discuss and advise the kings on how to make the world a better place. In those days, those were the days where disciplines have not evolved. Like there was knowledge is all one. Everything is all philosophy in those. Everything. That's why we now say philosophy is the mother of all disciplines or all sciences. Now the degree PhD is what is PhD? Doctor of Philosophy. We don't say doctor of chemistry or doctor of molecular biology. We say doctor of philosophy because philosophy is the mother of all. In those days, everything was philosophy. So people used to have taught medicine, mathematics, sociology, history, archaeology, politics. So everything used to come into one. The Royal Society people used to sit and then discuss with. Nellore, please mute. Nellore person, please mute. Will you mute? So these people, scholars used to meet once in a way, and then after some time they thought, instead of meeting and then leaving, why not we write it down on a piece of paper what we are discussing. Okay, when 10 scholars meet in the evening for an hour, at the end of the day they thought that they should write it down, the important findings on that, the important things happen, resolutions that they took place on that. When 10 or 20 scholars sit together and discuss, some points will emerge at the end of the day. So they thought we should write it down. They started writing it down, like something like writing the minutes of the meeting. So they started recording the minutes in the book form, in a note. And they start why we should keep it in the book form only for ourselves. Let us distribute, make copies of it and distribute it to everybody. So that's how the first dissemination of scholarly communication started all in London in the Royal. So that is called, every week they come out and they gave a name for that. It is called Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society of London. This is a big name, please note it down. Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society of London. So this happens to be one of the earliest journals that a few months earlier to the Philosophical Transactions. In the year 1665, another journal by the name Colonel D. Savan. I have given it in the book. You will find it in the book on page number 4. Sometimes you will get a question in the exam. Is the first scholarly journal book? Or when did the first scholarly journal came into existence? So those are possibilities for your 1 mark question. You keep tabs on some of these points. When was the first journal came? Okay. So I told you a little bit about books, and then this is on the top. Now I will tell a little bit about journals. You might not have heard much about journals as graduates. Journal is something which is continuously. Book is something which is published, and then once it is published, suppose I write a book. Okay, after I write a book, what happens is I go to a publisher. Publisher makes 500 copies, or 1,000 copies, or 5,000 copies, depending on the market need, and it goes to the market. That's the end of it. If I want to update that, maybe after 2 years or 3 years, I will come out with second edition of next edition. Then again, maybe 500 copies or 2,000 copies, whatever the market demands, the publisher. Once a book is printed, it is a static, just similar. I can't change the content in a book once it is. Okay. Contrary to that, we have another channel of communication. We call it journal. Journal is something that appears continuously at a specified frequency. Okay. Here I should maybe spend a couple of minutes to tell you what is a periodical. In a library, we have books. We also have periodicals. And there will be a periodical section. Periodical is a publication that is published at a set frequency. These periodicals could be a weekly. If it comes once in a week, we call it a weekly. If it comes once in a month, we call it monthly. If it comes once in 15 days, we call it a fortnightly. That appears once in 3 months, we call it quarterly. If it comes twice a year, we call it half yearly. If it comes once in a year, we call it annual publication. All these have different periods. So if it appears every day, we call it daily. In that sense, our newspaper is also a periodical. Anything that follows a specific periodicity is a periodical. Librarians. These periodicals could be daily, if it is published daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly, half-yearly, or year. Sometimes they may not be a given set of periodicity, but it is continuously published. Like, for example, 24 times in a year, 36 times in a year, 40 times in a year. There are also certain publications which do not follow any specific schedule, specific specific time period, but publish that many times in a year. 30 times in a year, 40 times in a year, 20 times in a year, 10 times in a year. Those things also happen. There are also certain scholarly journals which appear as and when the need arises. As and when sufficient content is available, then they print it. Volume number, issue number. So, journals are those that appear at a specified period. So, all journals, remember, as librarians, all journals are periodicals. All journals are periodic. At this point of time, I should also distinguish you what is a magazine. You also must have heard about the word magazine. The magazine is something that we read for what we call lighter India Today. India Today is a magazine. Okay? Sometimes, these magazines are read for pleasure. Just to know what is happening around you read. For example, Swati. There are a lot of magazines in regional languages also. They may contain some stories, some features, some jokes, some cartoons, some pictures, maybe some puzzles. Okay? Things like an assorted content to you. Generally, magazines are for popular reading or lighter. Magazine is something which can be read by anybody. I can read, you can read, anybody can read. Magazine is something which can be read by any person with some language skills. If I can speak, if I can read and write English, I can read an English magazine. Meant for everybody. But journals are not like that. The word journal is used in a different context. Okay, magazines are also periodic. Magazines are also, for example, there are fortnightlies, there are monthlies. Chanda Mama. Have you heard about the word about the magazine Chanda Mama? It's no more there. When we were children, we used to read Chanda Mama. Chanda Mama is a children's magazine. Very popular children's magazine. Published. And it used to come from Chennai. It's a lot of pictures and all. It's a story, it used to contain a lot of stories, fiction. Magazines are for lighter. So whereas journals are scholarly. Today we are talking about scholarly. Journals contain, in a periodical, if the content written inside is very scholarly, aimed at researchers, aimed at scientists, aimed at decision makers, we call it work. So generally something for very serious, something very serious, something which you take time to understand. It's not that something anybody can. Suppose there is a journal of chemists. Okay? Unless you are a postgraduate in chemistry, you will not be understood. It's not for a man on the street. Whereas a normal Namaste Telangana can be read by anybody. You don't need to be a PhD to read a Namaste Telangana newspaper or Times of India. The Times of India newspaper is for general reading, popular reading. Anybody can read. Anybody, some literary skills can. Journal is something very, very small. I'll show you how a journal looks. For example, this journal. This is called Nature Genetics. This is one of the top ranking journal in field of genetics and molecular science. This is published in England. Similarly, we have a lot of journals published in our area also, in library science also. For example, Journal of Doctor. This is one of the top-rated journals for library science. Library science and documentation. Documentation is part of that. Documentation is a specialized service that we give in research. And there is a journal devoted. Journal of Doctor. Similarly, there is another journal, Annals of Library Science. Another scholarly journal for librarian. This is an Indian journal, published from Delhi. Similarly, we have another journal, Library Science with the Slanted Art. This is also a journal. So these things come at a periodicity. For example, if you see there, it is written on it September. So you will find on it March 2001. Journal of Documentation, there is a date for that, March 1996. So these are the content that even librarianship is also a scholarly area. We have a lot of PhD students in library. lot of we have that librarianship has evolved so much that our discipline also has lot of prestigious journals on par with
Excuse me, sir.
chemistry, biology, molecular
Excuse me, sir.
economics, social.
Excuse me, sir.
Ah,
Sir, newspaper, magazine, both are different, sir. Newspaper, magazine.
yeah, newspaper and magazine both are periodicals. Okay, periodical is something that is published at a specified time. Newspaper is something published daily. We call it daily newspaper. Now it is published with a frequency of 24. So magazines may have a different frequency. Newspapers are also meant for popular reading. You are right in essence. Your question was whether newspaper and magazine are same or not. They are not same in the sense newspapers are generally daily. They appear once in 24 hours. So generally, to my knowledge, magazines are not daily. The magazines are either weekly. India Today is a weekly. India Today is a weekly. Frontline is a fortnightly. Reader's Digest is also a magazine. Reader's Digest comes once in a month. Magazines generally have a slightly higher periodicity. They come once in a week or once in a fortnight or once in a month. The newspapers are generally appear every 24 hours. Magazines do not come once in 24 hours. Generally once in a week or once. From the reading point of view, yes, both are for popular reading. They are not scholarly. Okay, but newspapers sometimes may carry some scholarly articles inside. For example, if you take a newspaper like The Hindu, for example, okay, so there may be a center page article. At the center, to the left side, in the middle pages, in some of these newspapers, there will be an editorial. Sometimes editorial could be scholarly. Sometimes it takes, they write their opinions. Sometimes, and similarly, experts do write articles inside the center page article. So in that sense, newspaper lo kuda, inside the newspaper, అప్పుడప్పుడు ఏం జరుగుతుందంటే కొంత స్కాలర్లీ ఆర్టికల్స్ అప్పుడప్పుడు వస్తాయి newspaper. Suppose, for example, if you see Indian Express, Sunday Indian Express, okay, there may be some scholarly content appearing in Sunday magazines. They call it magazine section. Similarly, most of the newspapers have book review columns. As librarians, you should keep tabs on the book reviews that appear in newspapers. Those book reviews are a bit scholarly. Okay, not everybody reads the. See, you may be subscribing to newspaper, but how many of you read the book reviews that appear in the newspaper? Not everybody reads the book reviews. Once in a week, you find book reviews. Hindu paper has book reviews on a given day. On Sunday magazine section, they, in their opinion, what they consider the best books that appeared in that week, in the past 7 days. A scholar will review that. How good is that book? And then what is the essence of that book? What is it that the author tried to convey in that book? So sometimes, the book reviews are so good, so illuminating that it's almost like reading the book. If a good person writes an excellent review, it's so good that it's almost like reading it. In half a page, in about say 500,000 words, they try to convey the meaning, essence of it. So in that sense, what she has asked is, yes, newspaper is grossly popular. Newspaper and magazines are grossly meant for popular reading. But they may also occasionally contain some scholarly. Like as I said, book review paper there is that. For example, an economist like Rangarajan, for example, our ex-governor of the Reserve Bank of India, Rangarajan, Dr. Rangarajan, he writes sometimes in the Hindu paper on Indian economics, and very scholarly stuff here. It appears maybe once in a month, once in 2 months, he writes in newspaper. So that particular column in that newspaper is called grossly, by and large, the newspaper is meant for popular. Similarly, in science also we have some popular stuff. Like for example, I'll show you scientific cover. Okay, this is aimed at college students world over. So this gives you, this is not specific to any particular discipline. So suppose you want to be up to date with science, you want to know what is it, you have a lot of passion for science. Our children have a lot of passion for science. They want to know what is happening. So you subscribe to some popular magazine. Just as you subscribe to a newspaper to know what is happening around the world. So you also get into some popular science magazine. This is not a journal. This is a magazine. This is a science magazine, Scientific American magazine. This is meant for popular reading. They write about chemistry, they write about astronomy, they write about medicine, they write about coronavirus. The contemporary scientific issues. They write in a loosely simple English, such a way that anybody will be able to understand. I'll show you something else. This is also a popular science magazine, Science Horizon. This comes from Bhubaneswar, Orissa. This is the Orissa Science Council publishes. Similarly, this is another one, the scientist. These are meant for popular reading among scientists. These are magazines for scientists. Similarly, this is also another thing I should show you. I should show you also the Lancet. It started publication in 1828. Among the science journals, this is one of the earliest publications, Lancet. And the Lancet is a medical journal. It's a very prestigious, top-ranking medical journal in the world. Even today, this is one of the earliest journals. This started in 1823. Lancet is a British journal, started in 1823. Even today, it is there. It is fully online now. And now, if you want to know very authentic information, authentic research findings on, let us say, coronavirus, that is something that is burning the whole world, you go to Lancet. Okay. So whatever appears in Lancet, you can say it is very, very authentic. So these are the days we find a lot of misinformation, a lot of wrong information being propagated. Somebody says you eat this, drink this, pepper kashayam. Somebody says they grind ginger and drink that, corona will go out of it. And all kinds of things we hear these days, WhatsApp and social media. But that is all not scientifically proven therapy. The scientifically proven research-based therapies appear in issue. You want that issue. So as librarians, by the way, as a passing remark, I should say that once you become a full-fledged librarian, you will have the ability to distinguish what is authentic, what is scientific, what is truthful information, what is not. That is the ultimate role of